Number 1. The Vanishing Roommate. In a small, run-down university dormitory, Sarah shared a room with a mysterious roommate named Emily. Emily was an enigma, rarely seen outside of their dimly lit room. She kept to herself, and the only sound that emanated from behind her closed door was an eerie humming late into the night. One evening, as Sarah returned from her classes, she noticed something odd. The room was colder than usual, and a faint, unpleasant odor hung in the air. Emily's side of the room was shrouded in darkness, and she seemed to be whispering something incomprehensible. Alarmed, Sarah asked, "Emily, are you okay?" Emily didn't respond. She continued her incomprehensible muttering, her back turned to Sarah. The situation unnerved Sarah, but she assumed Emily was going through a difficult time and decided to leave her alone. The following days only grew stranger. Emily's behavior became increasingly erratic. She slept during the day, covered her windows with black curtains, and remained awake all night, engaging in bizarre rituals. Sarah could hear strange chants and the sound of something scratching against the walls. One fateful night, Sarah woke up to a nightmare. Emily stood at the foot of her bed, her eyes wide and vacant, holding a gleaming knife. The room was filled with an unnatural, cold silence. Sarah's heart pounded as she struggled to speak. What are you doing, Emily?" No response. Emily took a slow step forward, the knife glinting in the moonlight. Terrified, Sarah lunged out of her bed, narrowly escaping Emily's reach. She bolted from the room, rushing to call the campus security. When they arrived, they searched every inch of the dorm room, but Emily had vanished without a trace. There was no record of her ever having attended the university. Sarah's ordeal haunted her for years. She never discovered the truth about Emily's disappearance or the strange, sinister forces that seemed to have taken hold of their dorm room. It remained an unsolved mystery, whispered about among the students as the chilling tale of the vanishing roommate. As Sarah delved deeper into her studies, she became obsessed with uncovering the truth behind Emily's bizarre disappearance. Late at night, she would find herself poring over dusty archives in the campus library, searching for any clues that might shed light on the enigma that was Emily. One evening, while researching the university's history, Sarah stumbled upon an old newspaper article dated many decades ago. The headline sent shivers down her spine: "Mysterious rituals uncovered in dormitory, student vanishes without a trace." The article described a series of strange occurrences eerily similar to what Sarah had experienced with Emily. According to the article, decades earlier, a student named Emily had lived in the same dormitory room that Sarah and her enigmatic roommate had shared. Emily had been known for her eccentric behavior, staying up all night, performing bizarre rituals, and muttering incomprehensible chants. The room had grown frigid, and an ominous presence had settled within. One night, Emily had vanished, just like Sarah's Emily. The authorities had searched the room, finding only cryptic symbols scrawled on the walls and the remnants of strange herbs and powders. No one ever saw Emily again, and the room had been sealed off ever since. Terrified by the eerie parallels between the two stories, Sarah decided to investigate the sealed-off dormitory room herself. She enlisted the help of a few brave friends, and they managed to break into the abandoned room. Inside, they found a place frozen in time. The walls were covered with the same cryptic symbols mentioned in the newspaper article. Oddly, there was an old journal, its pages filled with Emily's frantic writings, detailing her descent into madness and her obsession with a malevolent entity that seemed to have taken control of her life. As Sarah and her friends delved deeper into Emily's journal, a bone-chilling realization dawned upon them: the entity that had plagued Emily decades ago had never left. It had merely found a new host in Sarah's Emily, continuing its malevolent reign over the room. The room grew colder, and the air thickened with an oppressive presence. Desperate to escape the room, Sarah and her friends fled, sealing it once more. They never spoke of what they had discovered, but the memory of that night would forever haunt their dreams. The vanishing roommate remained a chilling legend on campus, a cautionary tale to all who dared to venture into the world of the unknown. And for Sarah, it was a reminder that some mysteries were better left unsolved, for they concealed horrors beyond imagination. Story number 2. The Cursed Elevator. At the heart of an old, towering university building stood an elevator with a dark and chilling reputation. Students whispered tales of the cursed elevator that lurked on the 5th floor, even though the building had only 4 floors. Those who dared to enter its ironclad doors would often find themselves confronting an eerie and horrifying fate. One gloomy night, Jessica, a fearless freshman, decided to investigate the legend for herself. She had heard the stories but dismissed them as mere campus folklore. Armed with curiosity and skepticism, she stepped into the ancient elevator and pressed the button for the 5th floor. As the elevator ascended, Jessica felt a sudden chill in the air. The dim overhead lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows on the mirrored walls. The 5th floor button lit up, and with a jolt, the elevator came to a halt. Jessica's heart raced as the doors creaked open to reveal a floor that should not exist. The 5th floor was a desolate, abandoned space, unlike any other part of the building. The air was heavy with a damp, oppressive atmosphere, and a chilling wind whistled through the corridor. As Jessica cautiously stepped out of the elevator, a figure materialized from the shadows. It was a young woman in a tattered white dress, her eyes hollow and filled with anguish. She whispered cryptic warnings to Jessica about the terrible fate that awaited her. Terrified, Jessica rushed back into the elevator, repeatedly pressing the button for the ground floor. But the cursed elevator seemed to have a will of its own. It refused to budge, trapping her on the 5th floor with the vengeful apparition. In the days that followed, Jessica's life unraveled. The curse of the 5th floor seemed to have taken hold of her, just as it had with others before her. She experienced a series of inexplicable and horrifying events. Friends and family distanced themselves from her, fearing the malevolent force that seemed to follow her wherever she went. Desperate to break the curse, Jessica delved into the university's history. She discovered that the building had once housed a secret society that had performed dark rituals on the 5th floor. The restless spirits of those who had suffered at their hands were said to haunt the elevator, cursing all who dared to enter. Jessica's search for a solution led her back to the cursed elevator. With newfound determination, she confronted the vengeful spirit and uncovered a way to appease it. But the price she had to pay was higher than she could have ever imagined. The cursed elevator became a cautionary tale on campus, a grim reminder that some legends were born out of a chilling truth. The elevator's ominous presence continued to cast a shadow over the university, serving as a stark warning to those who dared to venture to the 5th floor, where the line between the living and the dead grew thin, and curses became all too real. Years passed, and the legend of the cursed elevator in the university building remained a harrowing story told in hushed tones. Students came and went, each generation adding its own layer of fear to the tale. But it wasn't until a group of daring thrill-seekers decided to investigate the elevator that the horror would escalate to new heights. These intrepid students, eager to prove the legend wrong, planned to spend a night on the 5th floor, armed with cameras and recording equipment to document their experience. They believed that by confronting the curse head-on and recording their ordeal, they could dispel the myth once and for all. As the group entered the elevator and pressed the forbidden button for the 5th floor, the atmosphere inside grew icy. Their breaths hung in the air like ghosts as the elevator jolted to a stop, just as it had for countless others before. The doors opened to the eerie corridor, and the group hesitantly stepped out into the darkness. They wandered through the abandoned 5th floor, their flashlights revealing faded, cryptic symbols on the walls and the remnants of long-forgotten rituals. The air was thick with tension, and the sense of dread grew with each passing moment. They set up their cameras, hoping to capture evidence of the curse. Hours passed, and the group began to doubt the legend's authenticity. But just as they were preparing to leave, they heard the faint whispers of a mournful voice. It grew louder, and the specter of a young woman in a white dress materialized before them. The apparition was different from the one Jessica had encountered years ago. This one was filled with anger and despair, seeking vengeance for the intrusion into its cursed domain. The students tried to flee, but the elevator doors remained firmly shut. The malevolent spirit tormented them, each member of the group experiencing their own personalized nightmare. It was as if the curse fed on their deepest fears and regrets. Story number 3. The Library Stalker. On a quiet college campus nestled in the heart of a sleepy town, the university library was a place of solace and study for students. However, for Emma, it became a nightmare she could never escape. Emma was a diligent student, known for her late-night study sessions. She would often find herself alone on the top floor of the library, engrossed in her books and research. But as the weeks passed, she began to notice something unsettling. Late one night, as she pored over her textbooks, a handwritten note slipped under her pile of books. It was a simple compliment: "You're the brightest student here." She dismissed it as a harmless gesture but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The notes continued, each one growing increasingly personal and intrusive. The stalker praised her appearance, her intelligence, and her every move in the library. Emma's unease deepened as she realized the stalker seemed to know everything about her daily routine. One fateful night, as Emma studied alone in her usual spot, a note arrived that struck terror into her heart. It read, "Tonight, I'll make you mine." She looked around, her heart pounding, but the library was empty except for her. Panicked, Emma gathered her belongings and rushed toward the exit. To her horror, she discovered that all the doors were locked. She was trapped in the library with her stalker. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced along the bookshelves. Emma's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number: "There's no escape, Emma." The stalker's chilling voice echoed through the library as she realized she was not alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, wearing a hooded cloak that concealed their identity. Terrified, Emma ran through the labyrinthine aisles, desperately searching for an escape. But the stalker seemed to anticipate her every move, taunting her with sinister whispers and laughter. The chase continued for what felt like an eternity, as the library transformed into a nightmarish maze. As dawn broke and the first rays of sunlight pierced through the windows, the stalker vanished into thin air, leaving Emma trembling and broken. The police arrived, but there was no trace of the mysterious stalker, and the library's security cameras showed nothing. Emma's life was forever scarred by the nightmarish encounter. She left the university, haunted by the library stalker's faceless presence, and was never able to set foot in a library again. The enigmatic figure became an unsolved mystery, a specter that lingered in the shadows of the campus, forever known as the library stalker. Life took Emma far from the small town and the university library that had once been her refuge. She sought therapy to heal the scars left by the stalker's relentless pursuit. But as she tried to rebuild her life, unsettling events began to unfold. In her new city, Emma discovered that her every move was still being watched. Anonymous letters arrived at her doorstep, filled with disturbing details about her daily routine. Her phone buzzed with messages from blocked numbers, each one more menacing than the last. Emma's paranoia deepened as she realized that the stalker had followed her, leaving a trail of fear in their wake. Her therapist encouraged her to report the incidents to the police, but there was little they could do without concrete evidence. Determined to confront her tormentor, Emma decided to set a trap. She returned to her hometown and the now-deserted university library, where it had all begun. She spent countless nights there, waiting for the stalker to reveal themselves. One moonless night, as Emma sat alone among the dusty bookshelves, she received a message on her phone. It contained a single image, a hooded figure standing in the shadows of the library. The stalker had returned. Emma's heart raced as she confronted the figure, demanding answers. The stalker slowly removed their hood, revealing a face she never expected. It was her college roommate, Lily. Shock and disbelief washed over Emma as she tried to comprehend the betrayal. Lily confessed to the twisted obsession that had driven her to stalk Emma. She had been jealous of Emma's academic success and sought to possess her life. Lily had gone to great lengths to mimic Emma's habits and routines, even to the point of moving to the same city. The police were called, and Lily was arrested for her actions. As Emma watched her former roommate being led away in handcuffs, she couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and sorrow. The nightmare was finally over, but the scars it had left would take much longer to heal. The library stalker remained a chilling tale, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying threats could come from those closest to us. Emma's journey through fear and paranoia had been harrowing, but she emerged stronger, determined to rebuild her life far from the haunting shadows of the past.